Ethan asks, what is the earliest known evidence of exercise for the sake of fitness? I did have an immediate thought when Ethan asked me this, and I wanted to look it up, and I'm validated because, as usual, I was right. Greetings! You are listening to the RF Fitness Podcast, the show where I yell about fitness, fatherhood, fantasy gaming, and everything else in between and beyond. Who am I? Why, I'm your host, Rob Finlayson, certified older brother, fitness coach, and insert third thing here. I'm not here with a co-host today. I'm doing a solo Robisode. And if you are watching the video, yes, I am wearing a hooded cloak for this recording. I had today some listener questions that I asked for earlier in the week, and I am just now finally getting to answering them. Thank you all so very much for your patience. There are multiple platforms and multiple users that sprang forward with a veritable deluge of queries for yours truly, and tonight I will endeavor to answer as many as I can. Very likely I will make further episodes to answer questions I don't get through tonight because y'all know I just love to stay on track. So here we go. The first crop of questions I have is from Instagram when I put a question on there. From my good friend Elliot. He asks the first question of the night. Who is your biggest inspiration personally and professionally? Personally, so a couple of answers for both of these. We're already getting off the track. I have one answer that answers both of these questions, and then I have two separate answers that are separate. So we'll go through those ones first because that's more interesting. Personal role models, I look up a lot to like Captain America and Spider-Man. That's not going to be surprising, I think, to most anyone who's known me personally for a long time or who has seen me in person and knows that I have both Captain America tattoo and Spider-Man tattoo. Just the way they comport themselves, and I think through both Cap and Spidey, there's this through line of like grinding yourself to a nub in order to help other people. And that might not be like a super healthy thing to look up to, but that's what ingrained itself into my brain. When I was, 10, 11 years old, and I started really reading comics for the first time. Professionally, I don't know. There's no one who I look to professionally like, I want to do what they're doing, because there's no one doing what I want to be doing in a space that I have found yet. At least not right now. So it's hard for me to kind of find role models or inspiration out there. I mean, there's certainly coaches and personalities that I like a lot. I mentioned Stone Circle. The Stone Circle is a YouTube channel that I mentioned in my newsletter that I put out earlier this morning, The Best Next Move. He has a lot of really great content about minimalist training and sandbag training specifically. So he's got a lot of really cool ideas and things to say about that. But again, it's not like he's not doing what I want to be doing. He has cool ideas and they're useful and it's awesome, but it's not like, oh, I want to be like Stone Circle. And then there's Dan John, who's a guy I've mentioned maybe a couple times on the podcast. He's a really high level strength and conditioning coach who's been in the game for maybe as long or longer than I've been alive. He's coached multiple Olympians across several sports, mostly track and field throwing events, but lots of football players and a handful of wrestlers, I believe, as well. But he's a big kettlebells guy, so you can probably guess why I'm really into him and his philosophies and like why he does the things he does and the way he does them, which are, again, fairly minimalistic, kind of what might be considered old school or old fashioned. But his coaching approach, I have found, really gels well with my own, like the way he talks to and about and with his clients, which is very client-centered, very athlete-centered, like about, one thing I've heard from multiple people about my own coaching style is that I am able to meet people where they're at. I meet you where you're at, and we move on from there. I don't expect you to walk through the door with any particular set of skills when we start training together, because that's not what I do. I don't, it's not like I'm training people for like the Army PFT. Like, like you have to know what a push-up is already. I mean, most people probably know what a push-up, whatever. Maybe another example. But the fact of the matter is, like, Stone Circle Training doesn't talk a lot about his personal one-on-one coaching, the psychology side of things, which is what I really, really enjoy, part of my job. And Dan John doesn't get too much into the nitty-gritty of, like, how is fitness rolling into social justice and current political movements. There's a lot more of that happening more often on Threads, the Instagram answer to Twitter, which is better now, I think. So that's where I've been seeing some of those conversations. But again, there's no one in that space who's like, oh, I want to be like them. And I've mentioned my previous mentor, Damian Roshan Washington, as well. So I could not be where I am today without the invaluable experience and insight I got working alongside him for as many years as I did at the New Hope YMCA way back when. So, Damian, thank you and I love you. I don't think he even knows how to do this show. That's fine. That's not what matters. What matters is the one answer that answers both questions, and that is you, listener. You give me inspiration, and this is why I wanted to save it for the second half, because it is kind of a boring cop-out answer, it feels like, but it's you and my friends and my family, the people who I love, the people who I care about, much like Captain America or Spider-Man. It's more than some idea or some material reward that keeps me going and doing what I want to do. It is a drive that I have, a deep desire to make people's lives better, to help people. I've said, maybe silently to myself, I don't know how many times, that I've always wanted to help. I've always wanted to be a superhero, right? I've always wanted to be able to help people, but I was never smart enough to be a doctor or brave enough to be a firefighter, or not in the right place at the right time to do any of these other things. But I had this particular skill set and I kind of fell into fitness, and it is something that has a wide range of needs to service. And I get a lot of touch with many different people and many different lifestyles and many different walks. And I get to help each of them do something that is universally challenging, which is to be a human being in a body. That's always hard. So if you're having a hard time being a human being in a body, don't worry. You're in good company with everyone else on the planet Earth, ever in history, forever. Next question. Elliot asks him, you know him. Elliot asks, what is your favorite season and why is it fall? Because of sweaters and Halloween. Thank you for asking. Next question. Clean and press or snatch, and why? I gotta go. You can hear me clicking between my tabs. I gotta go on this one with the clean and press. I really like, and we could say this is with dumbbells or kettlebells, obviously, or with a barbell. So I think of the clean and press or the snatch. I think of with kettlebells, unsurprisingly. I prefer the clean and press because it is more approachable as a technique for coaching. And it is, I think there's more variable ways to perform it as well, like with a higher or lower weight, with a higher or lower pace or tempo. With, the snatch, you kind of have to do just the one way. And it is the snatch as an exercise, as a weightlifting exercise, is an incredibly powerful tool. I think that my personal use of kettlebell snatch training was really instrumental in my laying the basis of my conditioning for martial arts and the rest of the fitness that I enjoy for the rest of my life. But it's not something that's easy to teach. And for what you get out of it, there are other things that you probably could be doing more of instead of just like a single arm kettlebell swing. If we're again talking about kettlebells, I'm not going to speak to it necessarily on barbell stuff, barbell clean and press versus barbell snatch, because I can't really do a barbell snatch. So I don't really have anything to say about that. It's outside, that is outside of my purview. Next question. Number 4, cake and brownies and why? And I'm going to say cake because you don't get burnt edges. And if you do, the whole thing is burnt, you can throw it away and then you can eat the brownies. Thank you, Elliot, for asking those questions on Instagram. Moving to our next platform. I'm really cruising here, guys. We're less than 10 minutes in. Next platform, moving to Discord. Obviously, you can go to rffitness.net, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and click on join the party to jump into the community Discord server for free, which means sometimes I'll ask questions for or about the pod, and you can get your input on there. So I have all the questions people asked from the Discord in today's episode, starting with user Sexy Papaya, who asked, what are some of the best alternative ways to track progress on your fitness goals if tracking weight loss tends to affect your mental health negatively? It's a really good question. They go on, growing up as a teen girl in the mid 2000s gave me, and a lot of millennials, a case of the old body dysmorphia. And most of the time, if my progress isn't reflected on the scale, I can lose hope pretty quickly. They have a little addendum here. I usually avoid the scale completely and just go by how my clothes fit and overall vibes. But I think I'd be more consistent if I can see more concrete changes in my progression. Maybe share some good ways to track reps and or cardio pace. Thanks in advance. Good question, Sexy Papaya. Thank you so much for asking it and also having a really fun username. One, yes, you are correct that judging progress by vibes alone is not super scientific. When we talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based, vibes doesn't really fall under any of those. Doesn't really fall under any of those. And I have had many clients who, not suffer, but have had the same deal where, and not just with my own stuff, but with in the 12 years I've done, I've had so many clients, mostly women, who either right off the bat say, I don't want to track my weight. Good. Like, thank you for telling me. Or they don't tell me that the weight is going to be a big issue for them. And then we do start tracking things because they say, I want to lose weight, and weight loss is their goal. So that's how I assume we're tracking it. If you don't tell me not to, we're losing the weight. And then we spin out, and like in a big way, it's like, oh my God, like, it's been like a month and I've only lost like 1.5 pounds. And just all of a sudden you lose a client because they just like fly off the handlebars, which is more common than you might think, which sucks a lot because there are lots of good ways to track your progress outside of the scale. And even especially encourage people to focus on, unless your goal is like either really big weight loss or really small weight loss. I don't think stepping on the scale is going to be hugely beneficial to most. I mean, if my client avatar is someone who wants to do stuff better, and weight loss will be a symptom of that. Oh, I shouldn't say weight loss. An improved body composition ratio will be a symptom of improved everyday athletic performance. That's sort of what I coach about. That's what I do. I'm gonna burp. I'm going to edit that out. Excuse me. So you asked a really good question here, Sexy Papaya, about good ways for tracking reps and or cardio pace. And this actually rolls into kind of a question we have later on about gauging like performance intensity in general. One of the things that I have been doing for the past couple of years that I really, really like as far as a performance metric is rounds for time or reps for time. One of the things that crops up a lot when you use kettlebells is the inability to progressively overload the intensity, the weight, right? So I spend $137 or whatever on a single 53-pound kettlebell. I'm not about to spend another $173 to get another kettlebell that's 5 pounds heavier than that. That's a lot of money. I can't afford that. So how do I progress, right? The standard, the golden rule of strength training. We talk about that a lot. The golden rule of strength training is progressive overload. You have to keep making the thing you do harder as your body adapts to it in order to continue stimulating adaptation. This will come up later. And the way we do that with kettlebells is by doing more reps or doing the same amount of reps in less time, doing the same amount of reps with less rest, doing more reps in less time. So it becomes density. So like if we have a thing, imagine you have a jar of M&Ms and every singular M&M you have is a rep of, let's say, a clean and snatch or a clean and press. I can put in 7 M&Ms and that's my 7 reps, whatever. That's no time limit. We have the same amount of the M&Ms are all weigh the same, whatever, to use this incredibly stilted metaphor. And they're within the same volume, right? This is within the same container inside this jar. Now, if I want to progress how many M&Ms are in this jar, but all I have are the same number of M&Ms, this doesn't make any fucking sense. So never mind. I'm going to scrap that. Forget I said all of that. Basically, you're fitting more work into the same amount of time. And that is how we're going to progress. So one thing I'm doing in my Best Next Move newsletter that I started today, second mention, you guys should sign up for it, is I'm going to be giving some density focused circuits and complexes to work with. Really inspired by one of the more recent videos from the Stone Circle, the training guy on YouTube, and you can look him up, or you can just join the darn mailing list, guys, and get that information sent directly to your inbox every single Friday morning. But basically, today's was an alternating single kettlebell clean and thruster. So you swing the kettlebell between your legs, you bring it up to one hand, or bring it up with one hand to your shoulder, then you squat press it overhead, you cast it out, catch it midair, and then repeat that same movement. So cast it down, so swing it down between your legs, clean it straight up, into rack position, squat, press. That's 2 reps. Then you do a little rest. And then I think you do pull-ups in between. Then you do 4 reps. Then you do 6. Then you do 8. Then 10. Then 8, 6, 4, and 2. So it's a ladder up and a ladder down. The idea is that we time how long it takes you to complete that full ladder. Next week or week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever. Later when you do it, you try and do it faster. That's it. And if you can do it faster, you are getting stronger because your muscles are able to perform better. They can move more weight with less rest, with more intensity. This is how it works. So to answer that question in an extremely long and semi chocolate covered candy way, sexy papaya, reps for time. Reps for time or rounds for time is what I really, really like. So, and I'm going to see if there's anything, because I don't want to miss anything, because this is a big, good question. To track progress in your fitness, without mental health negatively. I mean, the trick on that one too is that sometimes we can tie athletic performance to like moral self-worth, the same way we do with weight, like body weight. I feel more comfortable using the performance yardstick with general population clientele because I think really spinning out over your performance or your perceived performance is a much bigger issue with people who are already athletes. And there's a whole thing about that. And that's, you know what I'm saying? Like if you go on the court or on the field and you don't perform the way you want to, and then in the training room, you're not able to perform the way you want to, or the way you think you should be able to, right? That can cause a whole scene with mental health as well. In much the same way that being heavier than you think you ought to be can also cause some very real mental anguish and distress, which is what we're trying to alleviate by tracking something else. So yes, vibes are out. Vibes are so 2024. 2025, we're tracking performance. We're tracking reps and density. We're density girlies now. So there you have it. Question number 6. Amanda Sevi 0915 asks, what is a great way to support your brain and mental well-being during brain fog? I feel like I've been suffering for weeks. P.S. I get great sleep too. I don't know. You should ask a neurologist because this is so far beyond what I am qualified in so many ways to handle with. This is like an actual medical thing. So, coaches, trainers can do a lot. I will gladly sit down and listen about what you're experiencing and empathize with you and, be a part of whatever journey it takes for you to help deal with this. But I can't be a person or the person with an answer or solution for it for so many reasons, many of them legal. And the big one, just straight up, I don't know how. So I'm sorry. I have to be a big enough man to say, I don't know. Those 3 little words every man finds so hard to say. If you understand that reference, then keep your stick on the ice. All right, it's water break. All right, question 7. More from the Discord. You guys are so good in the Discord. You guys are so cool in the Discord. User Random Ray asks, I'm curious, what is your personal fave time of day to exercise? And fact or fiction that different times of day are better or worse? I think we've actually covered this question before, maybe even on the last client questions or the member questions one, listener questions. That's it. And you guys aren't all my members and clients, but You should be. For the last listener questions, my personal favorite time of day to work out is the morning, the mid morning. I'm not an early morning person. I mean, I am now, but that is not by choice. That is by necessity. I wake up early every single day because I have to go to work. I heard someone say recently, like every time you wake up to an alarm clock, you are being punished by capitalism, which is like, whoa, man. could you say it louder for the people in the back? So yeah, I do still, I wake up at like 5 or 6 o'clock most days now for work or to help with the kid because she wakes up butt crack of dawn anyways. My best workout times though are usually between the hours of like 10 o'clock and noon. My jujitsu class that I like to go to is at 11. My jujitsu class that I like to go to is at 11 a.m. So I don't know if that's like my body's strongest time. My jujitsu would tell you it's not. But it is the time I am most used to, really pushing myself physically and mentally. So that's what I've adapted to, like it or not. And true or false, sometimes are better than others. I mean, kind of true. It's one of those things where to get like a measurable benefit from it is so narrow that it basically doesn't matter. Like if you're like a really high level athlete and you need like the extra 1%, then tracking like your own biorhythms and like your fluid levels and like your blood pressure throughout the day and training around that. Certainly. If you are a parent who needs to feel better with your body and maybe lose a little bit of weight and get stronger and have your skeleton be less noisy. I've had a noisy skeleton lately. The best time of day for you to work out is when you can fit it in. So which is probably going to be the morning. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I know I hate that answer too. Rennerme goes on to ask another podcast chatty chat. How to protect your joints because the knees be getting crunchy and the lower back be achy. Just talked about that, especially post kids and entering the 30s and mid 30s. I'm in my late 30s now, guys. Practical tips, but also mind tips because I feel so old some days. Well, you are old, and we are all getting older, and there's nothing we can do about that. I'm doing this cool thing called being alive longer, where I just don't die every day, and sometimes my body feels slower because of that, and that's just the price you got to pay sometimes. So I'll take it. As far as what do we do? Knees getting achy in the lower back. My knees ache and my lower back hurts all the fucking time. So I guess it's another one of those things of like, what do they call it? Radical acceptance, right? One, accept that you will die someday. That's step one. Step two is to realize that as you age, the mileage will add up on your joints and on your systems. And the knees and the low back tend to be ones that get a lot of mileage just because of how our bodies are built. It's a design flaw, or maybe it's a feature, not a bug. I don't know. Ask whoever you believe put the human body together. I'm sure they'll have a very crystal clear answer for you why it's that way. But I mean, regular exercise does so much. Diet and exercise does so much. I know, again, that's the boring answer, but to me, it's the Occam's razor of it, right? The simplest solution is usually the correct one, and it's diet and exercise. Eating a less than inflammatory regular diet, moderating like sugar and alcohol and like high fat, high processed fat in your diet and getting a lot of like greens and fiber and protein is really important. Getting lots of water is important. Will that help your knees be less crunchy and your back less achy? Yes. Like I'm comfortable saying that. Even with my tendency to waffle on fact-based statements, I'll say, yeah, it probably will. Exercise the same way. Moderate to intense physical exertion for around 150 minutes a week. That's kind of the bare minimum. That can be walking, hiking, playing sports, gardening, chasing your kid, lifting weights, working out, doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or rock climbing or really hard fly fishing. I think that's mostly standing around, but you do have to hike to get in there. So there's that. Brendan Ray goes on to say, basically, I struggle with feeling like, oh, sorry, there's a secondary question to this. Basically, I struggle with feeling like, did I try hard enough in a workout when I know I still have to do the all day in, day out things with my kid the next day, and so I can't be too sore, like putting them in a car seat, getting them up and down off the floor a million times. One thing I've sort of come around on recently with how I think about fitness and the type of fitness that I coach for and the type of client that I coach for is that being a parent, I think it's just some soundbite that I made in a podcast forever ago, but being a parent is a full contact sport. Being a parent is a high intensity sport, one that you're kind of always playing, and there is no off season until they're in school. And I guess then your off season is September to May or September to June, whatever, the thing is. I digress. So yeah, I think that all fitness is preparation. Well, I shouldn't say that. All training. There we go. All training is preparation. Your level of fitness, I think, is your required level of fitness will be determined by the most regular rigors of your life. And I need you, as your coach, I need you to be conditioned for the rigors of your lifestyle without training taking over your life, right? So even a high-level athlete, let's say a sprinter, can't make weightlifting their whole life because then you're missing out on sprinting. You can't do the thing. The weightlifting is really important. It's super helpful. I find an Olympic sprinter who doesn't do Olympic weightlifting or strength and conditioning training in their off season, or even when they're on season, they don't exist. These guys, they train really hard and a lot, but not to the point where that training takes over their life. It's not to the point where it takes the place of sprinting or doing jujitsu or being a parent, right? So there has to be a balance, a fine line between, can I perform? Am I able to be operational? This is something I was talking with a client a while ago. The main thing you need to be every day is operational. Can I do the things I need to do? And some forms of training, like bodybuilding, doesn't really take that into account, because you just destroy yourself. Super high volume, super high weights. And if you've listened to me talk about it on the show before, you can probably glean my general opinion on bodybuilding as a corner of fitness in general. I'll just say, for my audience, I don't think it's appropriate bodybuilding training. It doesn't service what you want it to do, really. Not what you really want it to do. Because you want to lose weight and you want to look good. And the internet says, well, bodybuilding is all about that. And bodybuilding is about that. It's about achieving a very specific aesthetic look. But the type of training that necessitates, the type of recovery that bodybuilding training necessitates, is not something one can balance with having like a 9-to-5 job and human beings who depend on you. If you are a college student with nothing but time to be in the gym between classes, bodybuilding is easy. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that bodybuilders don't work hard at what they do. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It necessitates so much hard work to achieve the results that we're seeing online that we are taking for granted as sort of like the standard fitness experience. I've been working out for 6 months now, and I don't look like, six-pack Susie on Instagram. I must be doing something wrong. No, six-pack Susie is 15 years younger than you and has never had a child. She doesn't have a full-time job outside of having a six-pack on the internet. And that's not to say that six-pack Susie doesn't work hard at this. I'm sure she does lots of time editing and making content and doing videos, and of course, obviously training and working hard, and she has to have a very strict diet. And I'm not here to denigrate anyone's effort. There is always nobility in providing for yourself, however you do that. But you can't, like, these are two different things, is what I'm saying. Like, where you are at and where Six-Pack Susie, this imaginary Instagram person, where you and Six-Pack Susie are, is very different. And the things that she does aren't going to work for someone who is in their middle to late 30s, who has a mortgage to pay, who has a full-time job, who has a child or more, or, two or more to watch out for, and they're like, under 5 years old. I'm not making chicken and rice every night because I need to make literally anything this fucking kid will eat. And then you just snarf off of that. So that's how it has to be. So your training needs to be, I'm getting so in the weeds, but what did you expect? Your training needs to be focused on things that move your whole body through a wide range of motion. And we're aiming for, a lot of the times, we're aiming for a minimal effective dose of exercise, of resistance training, of time spent under the weight to trigger the adaptation process, to stimulate physiological adaptation, right? I had things written down for these. I actually have to check. Okay, so yeah, just to review, basically feel like did I try hard enough in a workout when I still have to do the day in day out stuff? One of the things that I really like about kettlebell training is I find myself often not mega sore after, even if I get a really good work. I can like really lay it all out in a big kettlebell session, but the session itself is like maybe 30 to 45 minutes long. And like I've been talking about density a lot, right? Like the amount of density, the amount of work density you can fit into that period of time when you have a high technical level of skill with the weights, which I do. You can fit a lot in there, but it's still not enough, I think, at least I've found, to really like lay me out flat the next day or two, right? I mean, that happens with jujitsu a lot because I'm getting my butt kicked, I'm getting tied up in the knots, and when I do barbell training, especially any kind of barbell squat, dude, I am thrashed for like 10 days. It's a lot. And being that beat up from it, one, really discourages me from trying to do it again because clearly it's very unpleasant. And two, it physically discourages me from doing it again because I just can't do those movements anymore. My body hurts when I do it. I don't want to do squats anymore when it feels like my legs are going to split open. Like you're squeezing overripe peach and there's just my innards. I'm inside of my gym shorts. No good. So what am I saying? Basically that you have to know like where the intensity level is for you. Sometimes we use the RPE scale, the rate of perceived exertion. That's a 1 out of 10 scale, 10 being this task is essentially impossible, 1 being I'm literally asleep. We're looking for like a 7, 8 on that range is kind of what we're looking for. Somewhere you can push yourself, but you can keep doing it. You could do more right now if you really wanted to, but we're gonna tap the brakes just a little bit and not go our absolute maximum. If we're not training to failure every time, we're not gonna need a super long recovery period, which is basically to say you're not gonna necessarily get that bone, that crushing soreness. You will always be sore at first because your body hasn't adapted to it yet. Also, you will adapt to it, but you have to keep doing it, right? I've said it a million times really early on in the show. A lot of fitness is actually just skill acquisition. And one of the skills your body has to develop is recovering from, again, let's say a squat or a kettlebell swing, right? If you've never done kettlebell swings before and all of a sudden you're doing 50 of them in a workout, yeah, your butt's going to hurt. Your back's going to be sore. And it's just a whole thing about the low back that I've ranted about before. There are muscles in your low back. When they're sore after a workout, it means those muscles were working. When the muscles in your arms or chest get sore, nobody calls your chiropractor and says, please let me give you $700 to bubble crack my butt crack. When people's low back is sore, the muscles around there, your erector spinae, people tend to flip the fuck out. You have muscles there, your muscles are sore, give them time, movement, maybe some Tylenol or whatever, not Tylenol, whatever, you know what I mean? Some ibuprofen and some heat. You'll be okay. You just have to be able to do stuff, right? And there's so much. I mean, the intensity scale, I think, is such a huge conversation. As you can tell, I've spent about 10 minutes talking about it right now, so I'm going to have to move on. Let's see. B. Yes, to that question, Sexy Papaya adds, I second the question about protecting your joints. I have a pretty physical job, so I do get a lot of cardio and non-training exercise. I love that you specify non-training exercise in during the week. Love the job, but it's also caused some ouchy ankle and feet problems over time. I enjoy hiking and running for extra cardio. Do you have any tips to protect against body pain and injury so that I can continue enjoying these activities? Yes, I do. And for one of the extremely rare times, I'm going to softly suggest some supplementation. If you have fish oil, creatine, vitamin D on like a regular supplement, that's such a like covers your bases like human nutrient needs. Again, it's one of the things I'm pretty comfortable recommending to almost everyone. Fish oil, creatine, and vitamin D are, well studied and well documented benefits to the point where I feel as comfortable recommending those as I would say a protein powder, which I would also recommend actually is protein powder. When your body is physically really tired, when I work out for 2 or 3 days in a row and I'm just so beat up, what my body needs is recovery. So your results don't come in the gym and they don't come in the kitchen. They come on the pillow. Don't clip that. They come from when you're asleep. When you're asleep, you get like these 8 hours, the magic number, the 8 hours of rest, of time behind your own eyelids, and your body releases all these hormones to like flush your muscles with blood and the take up, whatever. It's a whole other question about that. This is looking like I need to do a whole episode just on intensity selection. But basically you need to recover. You need to eat enough and sleep enough. If you have that, then look at something like fish oil, creatine, vitamin D. If you have your diet on lock and your micronutrients and your macronutrients are supporting your lifestyle, but you're still feeling ouchy, get into strength training. Sounds like you do a lot of cardio already, hiking and running, like you said. Strength training, specifically things for the lower body. I would recommend squats, some single leg work. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Knees over toes guy on YouTube was a guy who had his moment during, I want to say like 2020, 2021, something like that. I think his modality has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit. He's not like the fad thing anymore, but a lot of his content is actually very useful and good for specifically knee health, ankle health, that sort of thing. So look up knees over toes guy. But of course, take it with a grain of salt. Ooh, how far are we in? 38 minutes. So much talking. We're switching platforms again. I'm going to take another water break. All right. Ethan, my best friend, Ethan, asks, what is the early... Oh, no, sorry. I'm not going to answer that one yet because I want to answer it last. I skip ahead to another question Ethan asks. Spider-Man, hooray, Spider-Man is said to have the proportionate strength and abilities of a spider. I believe that the phrasing is the proportionate strength of an arachnid. Using him as a template, what animal would you like to have the proportionate attributes and abilities of? And I gotta say house cat on this one. I hate how jealous I am of small animals who live in our homes, like my dog or a house cat. They mostly lounge around, but they still have this like seeming like looking like effortless athleticism. Like cats will just like go from 0 to 100 like that, like it's nothing, and they don't train for it. They mostly sleep all day. So that they can be up all night and run at Mach 5 around your kitchen and climb the walls and just like run so fast and claw so fast they run up the walls, and they can climb on stuff and they can fit through things and they can make huge jumps. All that's awesome. It's really cool. And I've seen them fight sometimes and do like very judo-y things, very jiu-jitsu kind of movements here when they're grappling with each other, which is also very cool. So I could still do martial arts as a cat. So martial arts cat, that's what I'm going to be. Which leads me into my 10th question, actually, of the night here. Ethan asks, what is the earliest known evidence of exercise for the sake of fitness? So not performing martial arts or training to be a soldier, but using one's leisure time for physical improvement? And this was a really fun question for me because my best friend asked it and he knows me so well. Because obviously I'm a anthropology nerd, anthropology major, history nerd, nerd in general. Fitness is my whole deal. So the new wave of fitness that we would recognize it probably started in like the 1900s, around the beginning-ish time of the Industrial Revolution, where people were putting together gymnasiums, right, in the United States specifically, and there was a lot of what's called physical culture, and they're doing some gymnastics, rope climbing, vaulting over like a pommel horse, that sort of thing. There's a lot of use of wands, and yes, just a wand, like a stick, a short stick, like a magician's wand, right? And they like move it around their body in like clock manners, sort of things. They do the same thing with like a weighted club sometimes. Dumbbells are very popular around this time. Barbells wouldn't be invented for another decade or so. That's not, not the way that we think about them. The adjustable barbell. But that was in the 1900s. Before that, people have always done sport, right? But I usually when I think of sport, it's usually like hunting, specifically on horseback, I think is what is referred to most as capital S sport in the old world. So that is a type of exercise and is an activity. But one's leisure time spent in that. So hunting, I think, is definitely something, if you count that as a type of exercise, a type of physical sport. I would say hunting is a good one from horseback. The Greeks, obviously, the ancient Greeks, ancient Romans had a huge physical culture. This 1900s thing where they had the physical culture was, of course, a kind of a symptom side effect of the obsession with the classical era of Greek and Roman history. So they had all these athletes, soldiers, of course. The first kettlebells, first dumbbells were being invented here. Gymnastics were invented. Whatever, I'm not going to say gymnastics were invented by the ancient Greeks. People have been flipping and throwing themselves around as long as they've been able to because it looks cool. So as soon as someone realized you could look cool doing that, they've been doing that. Trust me. So that's 2000-ish years ago. And before that, I think there's an idea that there wasn't a lot of leisure time to spend, like expending calories, like intentionally using up your body's energy for what, like I talked about a little bit in maybe our fat math episode about how like we're the first species to like accidentally overeat, and like the fact that we now have to worry about how many calories we're taking in because we accidentally eat too much. Rather than we have to worry about how many calories we're taking in because we could starve tomorrow, is a pretty new phenomenon. It's pretty different. So yeah, for most of human history, I feel like it's been that we haven't had the leisure, the privilege, right, of using exercise for leisure time. However, I did have an immediate thought when Ethan asked me this, and I wanted to look it up, and I'm validated because, as usual, I was right. There is evidence of Neanderthals swimming 100,000 years ago. So technically, I'm skating by because this is not a human species doing exercise for leisure. But I think it counts. I think it's extra points because it's a pre-human species, right? And you're going to say, Rob, how do you know they were swimming for leisure? Well, one thing we know that they were swimming because there's archaeological evidence of like shell collection when they didn't have nets, of fish eating and clam eating and turtle eating and stuff like this when they didn't have fishing hooks, So how do they get it? Well, they'd have to get down in that water, man, sift around, swim about. And there's like cave paintings, not from Neanderthals, but there's cave paintings from like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 years ago of like really, really, really early people depictions of humanoid figures swimming. Swimming is something that is to a human being so unbelievably dangerous if you don't know how to do it, that you would have to do it either one, because you need to for sustenance. So that's I think I would imagine many peoples throughout history started getting into the water because food was there or there was some other resource to exploit. And I would imagine that like anyone who has waded knee deep into the lake or into the ocean, into the creek, and felt the cool water on a hot day and just wanted to splash around a little bit and to swim, to feel your body move through space in a novel way is exciting and rewarding. And it feels good. You could even call it leisurely. You could even call it movement for its own sake, which at this point I would be comfortable defining as a type of exercise, or maybe not fitness, certainly a type of exercise for leisure courses. So there you go. I think my take as a coach and history nerd is that the history of exercise starts probably over 100,000 years ago with Neanderthals swimming, I have to assume, at least sometimes for fun. And I think that could be a good lesson for us today, because it feels like exercise and fitness, we're told it has to be so many things and it has to look like this and it has to feel like that. And you have to be trying so hard or weigh so much or so little. When like so many other things I like to do, I like to look to the old ways. And there are these early proto-human ancestors who are splashing around at the ocean side with their families because it's fun and it feels good to move your body. So if I could ask you a question, when's the last time you moved your body just because it felt good? I hope it was recently, and if not, I hope it's tomorrow or even today. This has been the RF Fitness Podcast. I am available for online coaching and hybrid in-person coaching and virtual Zoom sessions. To find out if it's right for you, head to rffitness.net. That's rffitness.net, and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the page to see the kind of coaching I offer. You can do the client application and hit join the party for free to join our community Discord server. Our theme music is Funk AF by Everett Ullman, distributed by YouTube Studios. Excuse me. Thank you, and as always, keep questing.